Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. We're recording from outside today. It's a really nice day, so why not? And if you hear distant cars on the highway or a dog barking from a couple ridges over, just know that I'll edit it out the best I can. This microphone picks up everything. Anyway, I want to thank every single one of you for being here, whether you've been with me since the early days or you just stumbled across the channel. I truly appreciate you. Legends, we just crossed over a year on this channel. I truly appreciate that. All of you legends out there who supported the channel and keep it moving forward. You know who you are, and I cannot thank you enough. Here's to more years to come, spreading the truth, making people aware, hopefully helping and saving people. If you've had an encounter of your own and would like to share it here on the channel, my email inbox is always open. Everyone knows that. You'll find my email address linked in the description below this video. Be sure and reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Now, this upload is all about something that leaves a mark like no other. Childhood encounters. I can't imagine seeing one of these things as a child. There are these kinds of experiences people just can't shake, I would imagine, no matter how many years go by. This will range from porches to creeks to barns, even backyards. Kids have seen things they never should have, and for many of them, I'm sure it's haunted them ever since. I'll let these submitters tell you in their own words what happened. Lock in, and let's begin. Everyone grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. Hey, Reels. So this is going way back to when I was a kid, maybe 11 or 12 years old. We were living in this little one-story house in North Carolina. It had one of those old porches that wrap around the front, and the boards always creaked when you walked on it. My parents liked to sit out there in the evenings, but to me, it was just a place where I left half my stuff because I never remembered to bring it back inside. That particular night, I'd been throwing a baseball against the steps, just playing catch with myself, and I left my gloves sitting on the porch railing. I remembered it way later, after everyone had gone to bed. My dad worked late shifts, and he was the kind of person who would chew me out for leaving anything in the dew overnight. So even though it was close to midnight, I figured I'd better sneak out and grab it. I didn't bother with shoes, just went out in socks. The house was dead quiet, and the porch light only reached a few feet out into the yard. Past that, it was just pitch black. I saw my glove sitting right where I'd left it, so I walked over, figuring this would be quick and easy. That's when I get this weird feeling that, as a kid, I had never felt before, but I knew something was wrong. It was like someone else was out there with me. I know that sounds dumb, but it was enough to make me pause. I leaned over to grab my glove, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw something by the hedge at the edge of the yard. At first, I thought it was the neighbor's dog. They had a really big dog, I'm not sure what kind, but the thing was massive. But the hedge came up to about my chest, and whatever this was, the top of it was higher than that, even while it was kind of crouched down low. I stood there staring at it, trying to convince myself I wasn't seeing what I was seeing. The shape moved a little, like it straightened up just enough, and the porch light hit part of its head. I saw a pointed ear, like a German shepherd's. And then I caught the shine of teeth as it opened its mouth. This wasn't a growl, I don't think. I didn't hear anything. It just opened its mouth enough that I knew I wasn't looking at a normal creature. I don't even remember grabbing that glove, but I must have because I still had it in my hand when I backed toward the door. I didn't turn around until I was inside with the door locked. I wanted to scream for my parents, but I couldn't make a sound. My throat was all lumped up and nothing would come out. The next morning I tried to tell myself maybe it was just the neighbor's dog. Maybe my imagination filled in the rest. That's just coping, and we all know better. I knew better. Deep down, I knew what I saw, and I still know today. A dog doesn't stand that tall behind a hedge. I'll never forget the way it just stayed there, half hidden, acting like it knew that I saw it. As a matter of fact, I know it knew I saw it. I think that's what it wanted, is for me to see it. These things, to me, have evil intentions. What else would target a child and intentionally scare them to death? Anonymous. Hello, friend. My encounter happened back in the summer of 1995. I was only 13 years old, and we were living in a small town in Missouri that I won't name here. You gotta remember this was before the internet was in every house and way before smartphones. If you wanted to be entertained, you went outside and figured something out. For me and my buddy, that usually meant riding our bikes, fishing at the creek, or daring each other to do stupid things. That week it had rained nearly every day. The little creek that cut through the woods behind my house had turned into something meaner than I'd ever seen. Normally, it was barely over ankle deep, and clear enough you could spot tadpoles and crawdads in it. But with all that rain, it was swollen up, brown water rushing hard with sticks and junk getting carried downstream. The whole bottom smelled like mud and dead leaves. You could hear the water from a ways off, like a constant roar in the background. My friend, being the weirdo he was, he dared me to cross it. I dared him back. That was just how we did things. Neither of us wanted to be the chicken, so we walked down to the narrowest part. The bank was slick, slipping on our shoes, and you couldn't get close without mud getting all over your legs. I was standing there trying to decide how stupid it would be to actually step in, when my buddy said under his breath, "Dude, what is that?" I thought he was trying to spook me, but when I looked where he was pointing, I saw it too. On the far side, just inside the shade of the trees, something was down low, trying to hide. My first thought was this has to be a person because of the size. But the longer I looked, the less sense that made. The shoulders were just too broad and too wide. The body was too bulky. It wasn't hunched like a man. It was more like it was squatting on its legs. And above it, I could see these pointed shapes that looked like ears or horns. They were sharp and upright. The longer I stared, the more wrong it looked. It moved a little, leaned forward, and I caught the shape of a long snout. This was definitely some sort of canine creature. My buddy whispered again, "Dude, that's not a dog." My legs just gave out on me. I ran up the bank, slipping in the mud, nearly going face first, but I didn't care. My buddy was right behind me, both of us scrambling like a couple of scared rabbits. We kept running until we nearly made it back to my back door. We never mentioned it to our parents. I didn't even tell my older brother because I knew he'd either laugh or, even worse, he would tell my dad, and then we'd never be allowed down there again. This is honestly the first time I've ever spoken of this to a stranger. For the rest of that summer, I couldn't go near that creek without feeling like something was watching me from the opposite bank. Even now, when I think about that day, I remember the roar of that muddy water. I remember that today. Anytime I see a flood or stained or murky water. It all comes flooding back in my mind, just like that little creek. C.H. Reels. This event took place in the fall of 1992. I was around 14 years old. I grew up in Norridgewock, Maine. Back then, it was a quiet little town. A grocery store, a post office, and not much else. Most kids either rode the bus or had their parents drop them off at school. Our bus stop was at the corner of a street and an old farm road. There were about 6 houses spread along that stretch, so a handful of us kids all met there every morning. It was just a patch of gravel where the bus could pull over without blocking traffic. On one side was the farm road with a wide ditch running alongside it, and on the other side was just thick woods. This morning I'm talking about was late October. There was a bit of fog out that morning, and you could only see a little ways down the road. I remember stomping my feet to keep warm and watching my breath hang in the air. There were 4 of us that day. Me, my neighbor, his little sister, and another girl we'll call Katie, who lived a couple houses up. We were talking about the Halloween dance at school coming up, just normal kid conversation. My neighbor stopped talking mid-sentence and stared across the ditch. At first I figured he was just trying to mess with me, being Halloween was so close. We always tried to prank each other, especially around that time. But then Katie let out a gasp, and I looked myself. There was something crouched down on the far side of the ditch, right at the edge of the woods. The fog was hanging low, but I could make out the shape. This thing looked like a dog, but was way too big to be an actual dog. Its head lifted, and that's when I saw the ears. The face was long, more like a shepherd's muzzle than anything else. It just stared at me, just stayed there, still as a rock, like it was waiting on the bus as well. As the bus came rumbling down the street, the headlights cut through the fog. The light went across the ditch, and in that instant, its eyes reflected bright. They were amber-colored. Then it just turned and slipped back into the trees without making a sound at all. We all just climbed onto the bus without saying a word. No one joked. No one even looked at each other. Later, me and my neighbor tried to talk about it, but all he would say was, "We saw what we saw." I never saw it again after that morning. But I will tell you, every time I stood at that bus stop after that morning, especially if there was any bit of fog, I would keep my eyes on that ditch until the bus showed up. Thank God that thing never came back. M.B. This encounter happened when I was only 15 years old. It was around 97. I lived in a town in southern Illinois. It wasn't much more than a main street, a couple gas stations, and a high school that everyone in town went to. Friday nights were for football games and wandering around afterwards trying to act like we had something important to do with our time. The cemetery was right behind the school, and a lot of us used it as a shortcut to get home. It wasn't a big cemetery, just a small patch of land with some old headstones and a gravel road looping through it. Nobody thought twice about cutting through there. It was a lot quicker than walking all the way around. I was taught to not fear cemeteries. My dad always told me, "Son, it's not the dead people that you need to worry about. It's the living, the ones above ground, that are the true, scary monsters." He's been proven to be correct. Anyway, that night was sometime in early fall. The football game had ended and a few of us were headed home. It was me, my friend Tim, and a girl named Sarah. We were just talking about homework and dumb stuff, not really paying attention. The cemetery was quiet, but they usually are. And it had that damp smell I'll never be able to forget. It's the smell you get when the grass has just started cooling off after a warm day in the fall. We were halfway through when I noticed something moving. At first I thought it was just the shadows from us walking past the street light. But it moved again, and clear as day. This wasn't something small. It wasn't shaped like a person either. It was extremely tall, probably close to 7 feet. The outline was narrow at the waist, but wide at the top. I could make out ears sticking up. I stopped walking and asked Tim if he saw it. He looked over, dead froze, and then just muttered, "Yeah, I see it." Sarah didn't even look. She just grabbed my arm and told us to keep moving. That's when it stepped out from behind one of the bigger stones, just enough for the light to hit part of its face. The eyes reflected, not like a cat's, more solid, almost white, in the glow. The nose or snout, whatever you want to refer to it as, was pretty long. For a second or two I saw it clear, and I swear it was sniffing the air like it was catching our scent or something else possibly. Then it dropped back down into the dark, and I couldn't see it anymore. I kept thinking of the movie Silver Bullet. I was a big horror movie fan back then, and this thing reminded me of the werewolf from that movie. We took off walking a bit faster after that, being as we didn't know where this thing was now. None of us spoke a word. By the time we got to the road on the other side, I was shaking terribly bad. Nobody mentioned it at school the next day, but me and Tim did talk about it later and agreed that we were going to stay away from that cemetery. I know how dumb this sounds or unbelievable to some people. I don't really care. You can think what you want. I'm not trying to be aggressive or standoffish. I've just been laughed at way too many times. It doesn't even bother me anymore. I'm just telling this to try to help someone. So take it as you will. Anonymous. Reels. I encountered a dogman when I was only 12 years old. It was in Hohenwald, Tennessee in '94. Now, if you've never heard of it, it's a little town in the middle of nowhere. Back then, we didn't have much going on besides school, church, and riding bicycles around until it got dark. If you wanted fun, you had to use your imagination and make it yourself. One of our favorite things was camping out in the yard. My folks had about 1.5 acres, mostly grass, but it backed right up to some heavy woods. You could hear owls at night, sometimes coyotes off in the distance. I always thought it was cool until this one night. It was me, my cousin, and his little brother. We dragged an old canvas tent out from the shed and set it up between 2 big oak trees on the edge of the yard. It was July. It was hot as hell, and even after dark it felt like the air was thick. It was so humid. We had a couple of flashlights, a boombox, and a stack of tapes we'd borrowed from my older sister. Around midnight, my cousin got up to run inside and use the bathroom. He unzipped the flap, stepped out, and a minute later he was back with his face pale. He told me there was something in the yard. I kind of laughed at first. I thought he was just being a scaredy cat or trying to mess with me. Then I started hearing something outside breathing, and it sounded like it was coming from the direction of the woods. This was an animal with deep lungs pulling in air. Whatever it was, you could tell it was not small. I leaned out of the flap, and at first all I saw was a dark yard. Then my eyes adjusted a little, and I realized something was standing right near the tree line, staring in our direction. This thing was standing on 2 legs, upright, and it was taller than my swing set. Its outline was definitely not human. Its shoulders were high. I'm guessing this thing was probably 7 to 8 feet tall, standing completely straight. It was too sloped. The head had ears sticking straight up like a wolf. For a second it didn't move, it just stood there facing the tent. When it finally decided to move, the porch light flashed off of its eyes. They reflected a yellow color. My cousin grabbed my arm and wouldn't let go. None of us dared to scream. For my parents, because I think we were scared it would come closer if we made noise. We just sat there, unable to move, paralyzed. After what felt like forever, it turned its head and walked off, back into the woods, and was gone. We didn't hear any sounds of any sticks being broken as they were stepped on. We heard nothing. A creature that size could move through those woods without making a sound. I don't even know what to say about that. We went inside shortly after. It took us a while to build up the nerve to come out of the tent, but we spent the rest of the night in the living room floor. My mom got mad the next morning because we'd left the tent sitting out in the dew, but we didn't tell her why. From then on, I never camped again. I have no desire to do so. I just can't bring myself to sleep outside when I have a perfectly safe home that I can sleep in. Doesn't make sense to me, especially when people learn what's really out there. The normal animals are dangerous enough, not to mention weirdo people in the woods. But once you see something like this, it takes fear to a whole new level. I'm not telling anyone to not enjoy the outdoors. If that's your cup of tea, by all means. But just take a word of warning. Be careful out there. There are things out there that you don't know about. Anonymous. Hello, Reels. Now I'm going to take us back to the summer of 1990. Yeah, I was 13 then, and I'm giving away my age. I'm old enough. I was living in Ripley, Mississippi. My grandparents had a little farm. It wasn't a big farm, just a few cows and an old red barn that had probably been standing since the 40s. My grandpa never locked it, and whenever me and my younger brother were over there, we'd end up messing around inside. That barn was our clubhouse. We'd climb up into the loft and stack hay bales like forts, dig around in the toolboxes, even dare each other to jump down into a pile of hay below. It's a miracle that we didn't get bit by a snake. Grandpa always warned us not to do it, said the boards were rotting, but of course we didn't really listen. This one afternoon it was hot enough the air was hazy outside. You could literally see the heat rising. My grandma had sent us out of the house because we were driving her nuts. So we headed for the barn with a couple of sodas. Inside it was cooler, and everyone that's been in a barn knows that smell. That smell like dust, hay, and old grease. We climbed up in the loft and started daring each other to toss bales around. We were laughing so loud we didn't notice anything weird happening around us. Out of nowhere came this deep thump against the big sliding door, like something heavy had just ran into it full force. A second later, the whole door rattled hard. The metal latch was about to rip off. My brother looked at me with his eyes wide. I remember him saying, "Someone's out there." I crept over to the edge of the loft and looked down. I heard this low growl that carried up through the cracks in the boards. This wasn't a dog. It was deeper, chestier, like it vibrated the walls. Then the door jerked again, this time hard enough that dust came down from the rafters. It shook the entire barn. We scrambled back up into the corner of the loft, not really knowing what to do. We were just kids. Through a gap in the boards, I caught sight of it. A tall, dark figure with the head of a dog or a wolf. It had hands shaped like humans with big claws on the fingertips, and it was gripping the edge of the door. It wasn't just pushing, it was trying to pull the thing open. I could hear the wood popping, and for a second I thought the whole door was going to slide back. My brother was crying, and I was on the verge of it. I yanked him toward the back of the loft where there was a little drop-down ledge that opened into the cow pasture. We half fell, half jumped out, and landed rough in the grass. My knee hit a rock, and I didn't even feel it until later. We tore across the field toward the house, and halfway there I made the mistake of looking back. Through one of the slats in the barn door I saw a hand. That same long, thin hand with claws curling over the edge. It swiped once and then pulled back. It was inside. Had we not made it out when we did, we would have been trapped in there with that thing. I don't even want to think about what could have happened. When we ran inside, we slammed the screen door and told Grandma everything. She just shook her head and said it was probably just a stray dog. It wasn't a stray dog. I don't understand people that won't believe their kids when they see something like this. I'll never be able to get that growl out of my head. I've never heard any animal yet that could growl like that. And the way that whole barn shook, the amount of strength and brute force it would have took to do that. This thing could grab you and rip you into pieces. That barn is gone now. It collapsed years ago. My grandparents have since passed as well, and occasionally I've drove by that piece of land just for nostalgia's sake. But I can't avoid picturing that hand, that gnarled, unearthly-looking hand coming through that gap, and I wonder if me and my brother would still be alive today had we made different decisions and choices. M.R. Ripley, Mississippi. Reels. I'm a 90s kid, and oh, the summer of 93, how glorious it was. I was 11 years old. I grew up in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, and back then, all the kids in our neighborhood played outside until our parents finally hollered at us and made us go inside. We didn't have phones or many video games at all to keep us busy, so we made our own games outside. We liked to play hide and seek. It was our game of choice once it got dark because it felt more exciting than in the daytime. One night there were about 6 of us running around. Me, my younger cousin, and a few kids from down the street. The rules were simple. One person counted at the porch and the rest of us scattered into the yards and trees to hide. Most of the good hiding spots were behind sheds, under porches, or in the line of bushes that ran across behind 3 houses in a row. I picked a spot near the back of an old woodpile. The boards were stacked uneven, so I crouched down low, thinking nobody would see me. It was quiet for a while, except for my cousin counting down. That's when I heard something walking. I heard footsteps in the grass. I thought it was just one of the other kids looking for a hiding place, but the sound was extremely heavy. Slow, measured steps, not the quick scampering of a kid running. I looked around the edge of the woodpile, and there it was. About 20 feet away, just past the line of bushes, a dogman was standing half hidden. The porch light from the neighbor's house was all the light I needed to catch a good outline of tall shoulders and narrow, skinny waist, and a head of a timber wolf. At first, I thought, could this be someone in a costume? but when it started moving its head and I saw the long snout, I knew this was some type of living creature. Before I could even react, it started walking toward the yard, like it was looking for something. I ducked down lower, hoping and praying to God that it hadn't seen me yet. But it let out this low, rumbling growl that I could feel in my chest. It wasn't loud like a dog bark, but more like a warning. It was deep and very drawn out. I couldn't hold still anymore. I was just too scared. I jumped up and ran, yelling for the others. My cousin came out from behind a shed just in time to see me. And when he looked past me, his face said it all. He saw it as well. We all ran for the porch, tripping over each other, trying to get inside. From the porch, we could hear it moving back toward the bushes, snapping branches as it went. One of the kids swore they saw its eyes reflecting in the dark, almost glowing, following us until we slammed the door. Of course, our parents didn't believe a word of it. They said we were scaring ourselves silly playing out after dark. None of us played hide and seek at night again. Even now, 30 years later, I won't let my own kids step foot outside at night. And when I hear other kids laughing outside after dark, I get scared. I get worried for them. I think about that night, and I think about that creature, the way it stepped out, like it was part of our game. I don't even know what to think anymore. And you hear so many encounters of people seeing these things. It's more common than you think. People just refuse to talk about it. Anonymous. Friends, legends, family. That's going to wrap up tonight's upload. I want to give another huge thank you to everyone who shared their stories. Childhood memories stick with us forever, and when those memories involve something this terrifying, it can definitely change the way you see the world. To my channel members and the supporters out there who keep this thing moving forward, thank you for every single thing that you do. To everyone listening, whether you've been here from day one or this is your first time, I'm grateful that you spent your time with me tonight. Thank you. Again, if anyone listening has had an encounter of their own, do not hold it in. Send it my way, or if you have another channel, send it to them. You're not alone. You need to let your story be heard. The email is down below in the description if you're interested in talking with me. But please, consider sharing it with someone. It could save lives. That's going to do it. Everyone stay safe out there. I love each and every one of you. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.